Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale, and it's early October, and Arizona is 3-2. I'll tell you what, Shane, in my wildest dreams, honestly, if you had told me that Arizona would be 3-2 going into the Oregon game, I would have said, probably not, but I would have been thrilled. And I'm excited, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, what more can they do now? That's how I feel. Am I off base with that?
No, not at all. And first of all, we're going to talk some stats. I'm going to throw some stats at you here soon, Eric, but I'm going to start with my favorite stat of the week, which is that Arizona is now 3-1 this season when Eric Cohen is in attendance. That's a fantastic statistic. You didn't go to Berkeley, and I don't blame him for not going to Berkeley, but no. So that's good news.
Thank you. Yeah, remember last year people were criticizing me, telling me I should never go to games again.
Yeah, well, so there you go. Three out of 4 is pretty good.
Yes, thank you.
But yeah, I'll get to the Debbie Downer portion of our conversation later. But yes, 3 wins in a single season is nice. You know, I tweeted out earlier today. We're recording this on Wednesday night. That 3 years ago today, Arizona was 2-0 in the Pac-12, first place in the Pac-12 South, and then everything went wrong. That was the beginning of their 20-something game losing streak. So
no, but they're not going to lose 20 in a row, Shane. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to lose that many in a row again.
They are not. Not don't think. They will not. Period. They're not losing 20. They will win another game this season. But we're going to discuss that in Buy or Sell coming up. I want to preview our guest, Max Browne, who has actually called both of Arizona's last 2 games, as I like to say, the good, the bad, and the ugly against Cal and Colorado. Will be joining us, and we'll get some analysis from him as to what he thinks of seeing the Wildcats in person twice over the last few weeks. But Shane, let's get right into it. It's Buy or Sell presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. You can get one of these ice shakers that Shane and I are holding up on the video feed at iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and you get $5 off. And even if you don't get the Arizona one that we have, get another one. They have a bunch of products. Chris Gronkowski has come up with just a bunch of new things. I'm always getting emails from them about what's on the docket. So it's pretty impressive.
And I know a handful of people have bought a Wildcat Country logoed ice shaker. If you haven't sent us a photo, find us on Twitter at Cut Country AZ or at Shane Dale AZ and let us know. And because honestly, that'll help keep our sponsorship going. And we'll be able to continue to do this podcast and provide all the quality, exceptional content you've become used to over the last couple of years.
Quality and exceptional are words that I would use in jest.
Quality,
especially when it comes to me.
Exceptional.
Well, you give the exceptional. I don't know if okay.
Well, I'll tell you in terms of picks this year, Eric, I have been nothing close to exceptional, but we'll get to that in the last segment.
I'm over 500, so we'll get there, and we'll talk about that in the last segment. All right, let's do an all football Buy or Sell. Number 1, Shane, Jedd Fisch has silenced the doubters, including myself, regarding his play calling. Buy or sell?
Oh, buy it for now, as long as he's winning. I think. Hey, I mentioned this a while ago, Eric. I think Jedd Fisch, his play calling, he's pretty sharp in terms of like what he pictures in his head as far as what could work. I think the problem last year was that he was calling plays for guys who were much better than what he had, guys who couldn't execute the plays. And now this year he's got some of those guys. Some of the trick plays he's already thrown out. Number 1, I don't think, they're entirely necessary against Colorado. I kind of prefer he saves those for better teams. But yeah, he's got the guys who can execute those plays now, and he's got the offensive line that can hold down the fort long enough for them to do some of the trick plays that they like to do. So for now, he silenced them. I think he's a smart play caller. I keep thinking back to our conversation with Wilton Spate before Jedd Fisch even coached a game at Arizona, and he's talked about after they had a big win at Michigan when Jedd Fisch was the quarterbacks coach there, he had Wilton in his office the next morning with 25 new plays to discuss. So the wheels are always churning with him. I never thought he was a bad play caller. I just think his decision making in terms of thinking that the guys he had last year could execute those plays. I think that was a poor decision. I'll just say that. But as far as play calling this year, I think it's been fine.
Well, obviously, I'm going to buy it. He has silenced me. I think his play calling has been brilliant. But I want to disagree with one thing you just said. You said the play calling is good as long as Arizona's winning. I'm going to take out the as long as Arizona's winning. As long as Arizona's scoring points.
Yeah.
The defense is what it is. And we'll get there. But I thought Jedd, they had 650 some total yards or 670 total yards against Colorado. It was phenomenal. 6 touchdowns from Jayden de Laura. And, after we recorded the podcast last week, Shane, I was thinking to myself, like, I didn't touch on Arizona running the ball because Colorado has the worst run defense in the country by far. Not even close. Hawaii's second worst, and they're like 30 yards a game better than Colorado. And Arizona had over 100 yards rushing, but it was the 484 or almost 500 yards passing if you include the T-Mac 11-yard play to de Laura. I mean, it was phenomenal. Jed, Colorado was expecting Arizona to run the ball, run it down their throats, and Jed did something pretty much different, and it was phenomenal. Arizona probably left points out there, probably should have scored close to 60. When you put up 670 total yards, you should probably score more than 40.
It wasn't perfect. They had the goal line where they were stood up, and they had before that they had to get to 4th and goal to score. But you can't hard to criticize how many points they did score. But I'll say that really for the second year in a row, Jedd Fisch is kind of in year 1 with this offense because other than Michael Wiley at the skill positions, everyone's different. Everyone, the quarterback, the wide receiver. I mean, Dorian Singer was there last year too. That's true. But yeah, T-Mac, you have Jacob Cowan, Jayden de Laura, Jonah Coleman. Hopefully Speedy Luke will get back in there. DJ Williams as well. So it's a brand new offense. We're almost the entirely brand new offense in that regard. So that they've gelled quickly. And so my expectations for them are high because they're still building that relationship and they're scoring while and putting up good yardage while they are. But hopefully that means they'll be able to continue to be competitive when this gauntlet of a schedule coming up when they start playing those games, starting with Oregon this weekend.
Quick bonus question I'm just throwing in here that I just came up with. Buy or sell, Jed's offense thus far this season is comparable in fun to Rich Rodriguez's when he was at Arizona.
Yeah, it's different, but yeah, you're scoring points. It's fun, right? I mean, that sounds like something a coach would say in a press conference, just as kind of a cliched statement, but it's true, especially with all the receivers who have made just ridiculous catches. I mean, I don't know how many top 10 caliber catches there were just in that game against Colorado. So just that highlight reel, having a tight end like Tanner McLaughlin as well, who broke a tackle on his way to the end zone. Yeah, it's been fun. It's been, I mean, anything compared to last year was going to be better, but they've been fun to watch for the most part. When they don't get in their own way, or when Jayden de Laura specifically doesn't get in his own way, they've been fun.
Okay, number 2, buy or sell. Jayden de Laura looks to be the best Arizona quarterback since Nick Foles. Buy or sell?
I'll buy that he has the potential to be that good. Certainly you have other guys who have come along who we thought might be as good. Anu Solomon had a very good freshman year. I mean, led Arizona to 10 wins for goodness sake. But then injuries, for the most part, injuries derailed his career. And then Khalil Tate looked like he was going to be great. And then in a number of things, including the head coaching change, didn't help him. But yeah, when he's on, he's fantastic. Max Browne is a big fan of his. We'll talk to him about Jayden here in a minute. And Jayden is only a sophomore, but I think it's important to keep in mind. I think he has the best set of weapons at his disposal since as long as I can remember for an Arizona quarterback. Dorian Singer, Jacob Cowan, T-Mac all made it at least one circus catch last weekend. It was ridiculous. Tanner McLaughlin has been outstanding at tight end as well.
Oh, he made a great McLaughlin. I was sitting in the end zone for that touchdown he had, Shane. Yeah. I mean, he caught the ball. I'm like, there is no chance this dude's getting there. Yeah. And he just made it look easy. It was phenomenal. Yeah.
I mean, not since Rob Gronkowski have you seen, I'm not comparing him to Gronk, but since Rob Gronkowski have you seen him just shed a tackler like that or seen a tight end shed a tackler like that in an Arizona uniform. But Jayden also, along with those guys, he has running backs who can catch the ball. Even with that, his completion percentage is only 9th among Pac-12 quarterbacks. So I think the potential is there for him to be one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the program. But I think he has a ways to go in terms of his accuracy and his decision-making and being consistent in that. There aren't any more Colorados on the schedule, Eric, and things are going to get a lot tougher from here. And I'm interested to see what he's made of.
So I'm going to sell this one, Shane. And I'm going to tell you, I think that there are 2 quarterbacks that I would have taken over Jayden de Laura to this point.
Okay.
I would have taken Matt Scott, and I would have taken Khalil Tate. With these weapons, if you put those guys in this offense, I'm just saying, I think, and I'm not saying Arizona has not been potent because what de Laura did was phenomenal. I just think it's a little too early to crown him and say, you said it right. He has the potential to be. Yeah. Well, but there are people on the Twitterverse that are saying he already is. And I'm not.
He's not there yet. He's not there yet for the reasons I mentioned. But, in terms of Khalil Tate, there's October 2017 Khalil Tate. And then there's the rest of Khalil Tate. It's
I
like
agree.
two different guys.
I agree. Okay, fair. Matt Scott, I would still take Matt Scott over de Laura at this point.
Interesting.
Just and no, to my friend Steve out there, no, I would not take BJ Denker over Jayden de Laura. I know that some people love BJ Denker. He did great.
Yeah, he was a great 1 year fill-in quarterback. He could run
what
the ball,
he needed to do.
Could throw it well enough. Yes.
Yeah, but no. Okay. All right, Shane. We've had the positive part of the conversation. Number 3 in buy or sell. Arizona's defense somehow might be worse than last year's version. Buy or sell?
And truthfully, I texted you that we discussed this on this week's show.
Yes, you did.
Halftime of the Colorado game, I sent you the text. I'm going to buy that they could be. Yes. You look at the stats, numbers don't lie. In some ways, they're a little bit better. In some ways, they're worse. Total yards allowed, they're a little bit better. 371 per game this year compared to 400 last year. Rushing yards, they're worse. They're allowing 33 more rushing yards per game, 213.4 rushing yards per game. They're actually averaging slightly fewer sacks per game they did last year. Turnovers, takeaways, much better. They've already forced 7, although only 2 in their last 3 games, but they forced 6 all of last year. And you have to consider 2 things. Number one, the defense, I think, has gotten progressively worse since the beginning of the season in certain areas, especially against the run. And number 2, Arizona's already played the weakest part of its schedule. 5 top 25 teams away. And if Arizona's defense continues to play the way it has, I think I might have preferred Don Brown's defense from last year to this year's defense. I think the talent is a slight upgrade from last year, but the results on the field just haven't been there.
All right, I'm going to sell this one tentatively. Your last statement there is one thing. I think the talent is definitely upgraded. I mean, Hunter Echols has been a beast, and Jerry Roberts has been great
for sure.
Defensive line, they look the part. They're just not. We're all thinking about the Cal game. Like, I'm not mad about what I saw against Mississippi State. I'm not mad about what I saw against North Dakota State. We're all just thinking, and I really can't be mad about giving up 20 to Colorado. I mean, it's college football. Colorado's going to score more than 20 against other teams in the Pac-12.
We'll see. That was the most they've scored this season to date.
The second half was a lot better than the first half. Let's just put it that way. They were a lot better. Okay. With that said, yeah, the defense is bad. And we'll ask Max about this, but they're not great. But I'm not going to say they are worse than last year. Last year, everything was an abomination.
On paper, they're better. In game, I think it's pretty even. And in some areas, they've been, again, numbers don't lie. And their schedule at this point has not been that challenging, at least not compared to what's coming up. That's my concern.
Okay, Shane. Next one, number 4. Do these numbers ring a bell? This is not a buy or sell question. 12, 21, 6, 11, and 18. Do you know what those stand for?
Those the Powerball numbers, or is that no?
Those are not the Powerball numbers. Those are the ranks of the teams Arizona is going to face over the next 5 games.
Good grief. Yeah.
12 Oregon, at number 21 Washington, home against number 6 USC, at number 11 Utah, and at number 18 UCLA. And by the way, I believe Washington State was ranked before they or they were just about to be ranked before they played Oregon the other week. I mean, it's a gauntlet. Let's talk about the next 5 games specifically. Now, I'm not saying that all of those teams will be ranked when Arizona faces them, but buy or sell, Shane, Arizona is very likely to lose these 5 games before ASU or before Washington State and ASU. And on top of that, a win, I would just say buy or sell, a win is very unlikely. I'm going to use the term very unlikely against
this is a different version of the question you asked last week, which is it's possible that Arizona could not win another game until they play ASU, which I bought. They could, but very likely I'm going to sell it because I think they'll find a way to win a game. The nature of college football, maybe I'm just going to, historically Arizona finds a way to get a big upset or 2. I know that doesn't have anything to do with this year's team, but I think they'll find a way to win a game in there. I think the least likely candidate is Utah. I think that they're going to get smoked by Utah. I actually think of the 5 games coming up, those ranked teams, I think Oregon is probably the second toughest, just in terms of matchups. This isn't the toughest Oregon team they faced. I think Oregon's ranked about where they should be. The line on the game at 11.5 points, I think, is where it should be as well. But Oregon's rushing attack versus Arizona's run defense scares the crap out of me. And I think just for that reason alone, it is a very difficult matchup for Arizona. The only saving grace is that it is in Tucson. They've beaten Oregon and Tucson plenty of times over the years, most recently, I think in 2017. But with that said, I think they'll find a way to win a game in those 5, just because.
All right. So who's the most winnable game? Which is the most winnable game of those?
I'm going to be stubborn and still say it's UCLA. I know we still, we talked about how UCLA was a fraud and then they went out and beat Washington pretty soundly. I just still don't think they're that good. I think that was more about Washington letdown, even though that game's at UCLA. Of the 5 games. And you know what? I actually think USC, I wouldn't pick Arizona to win that game, but I think it's a little more winnable than the Oregon game, just in terms of the matchups. I think Arizona could hang with USC.
Okay. So I actually agree with that, Shane. So I don't think, and I agree with you. I don't think Arizona's going to lose 5 in a row. I think they are good enough to get at least 1 win. The reason I'm not going to say UCLA is because it's at the end of the 5. So Arizona would be on a 4-game losing streak. I don't think it's going to come to that. I think this weekend there's a chance. I think at Washington there's no chance. The only saving grace for Arizona is it's a day game at Washington. A night game, they would have had 0 chance. I would have given them a 1% chance of winning that game. Yeah. Now, I still think Washington's offense is fantastic. I'll give Arizona a 15% chance of winning that game. They have a bye week after that. Then I think against USC went to Corvallis, Shane, and they only won that game by 3, and they struggled.
They scored 17 points in that game, right?
It's homecoming. If it's a night game, it's going to be rocking.
Yeah.
I'm going to give Arizona. I think that's a sneaky game. I think USC is really good.
I agree.
I think that's a sneaky game.
Yeah.
Then they're at Utah. I think they're going to get blown out.
Yep.
UCLA, I would give them 25 to 30% chance of winning that game. It just depends. What's UCLA look like at that point? Have they lost? Are they still 1 loss? Are they 0 losses? What do they look like? We don't know.
And for those 5 games, from most difficult to least difficult, just in terms of matchups for Arizona, I would go Utah, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA in that order. Not necessarily how good each team is ranked from top to bottom, but in terms of the matchups, the location of the game, time of the game, that's how I would rank them as of now. Always subject to change. Fair enough.
Okay. Our final bonus question for this segment revolves around this week. Shane, Arizona will beat Oregon by or sell if they hold the Ducks to under 200 yards rushing.
Ooh.
Now, I asked you the same thing for San Diego State, and they did, and they won. So I'm going to put the magic number once again at 200. Arizona gives up, I think, 230 a game, something like that. If they hold the Ducks to under 230, Arizona we could phrase it, can, will beat Oregon.
I think they need more than that. I think they need that statistic, and I think they need to be ahead in the turnover margin as well.
Okay.
You look back to the way Arizona's beaten Oregon in the past, and I think back to the 2013 game specifically, where they blew out a very good Oregon team. Is so many things went right at the beginning of that game. The interception was it Shaq Richardson that saved the ball from going out of bounds, and he shoveled it to Scooby, right? That led to a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I think that kind of momentum early in the game can just change the entire complexion and just give the home team, in this case, all the confidence in the world to hate from, we can hang these guys to hell yes, we can win this game. I think something like that might need to happen, like a big turnover, maybe early in the game. So I know we'll get into our predictions later, but I would say under 200 yards, and they have to win the turnover margin in order to win the game.
That's a great call. I will buy what you just said. Okay, coming up next, let's talk to Max Browne making his first appearance on Wildcat Country and find out what he thinks of Arizona and which team is the best chance at the upset. We'll ask him about that as well here on Wildcat Country. Scooby, we sent you an ice shaker. They are a sponsor, courtesy of our buddy Chris Gronkowski. You have it right there.
I love my ice shaker. Fun fact: when I trained with Glenn Gronkowski, everybody, when we were trained together, people thought I was the other Gronk brother. So it's kind of funny. But yes, I love my ice shaker. It is very good. I use it every day. I am a veteran to the ice shaker game, by the way.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here. Use coupon code Wildcat Country at iceshaker.com.
Shane, for those of us who were watching Pac-12 Network, well, you had to if you wanted to watch the Cats game, unless you were there in person on Saturday like I was, you heard the voice of one Max Browne who played at USC and Pitt, and now he's a Pac-12 Network analyst, and he does a fine job. I listened to the Cal game since obviously we weren't there, and he did an awesome job. And he has seen the good, the bad, and the ugly from Arizona football in the last 2 weeks. So, Max, welcome to Wildcat Country. Thank you for joining Shane and I. I know this is a generic question, but I'll start with an easy one. Just your thoughts on this Arizona team from what you've seen the last 2 weekends. As I said, you've seen the highs and the lows, I would say.
Yeah, no doubt. No, appreciate you guys having me on. It's been fun covering the Cats and being around the staff and whatnot. And my first reaction is just, and you guys have lived it firsthand, but just where they were at a year ago to where they're at now. I mean, it's night and day. I mean, it feels. I mean, it's funny. I spent a lot of time in USC parts, and I said a similar thing for USC as well in terms of where they're at last year to compare to this year. And it almost feels kind of like a gravy season, so to speak. But no, with no hedge, I think this is one of the best offenses in the conference, Arizona. I think throughout the conference, people have not woken up to that fact. And I say no hedge for a reason. I don't even think it's really a hot take. I think this offense is legit. You got the running backs, the receivers that are well documented, and then those that have followed my content even before. This might be new to Arizona fans, but I've been on the Jayden de Laura train for quite some time. I thought he played the best in November of last year of any Pac-12 quarterback, and he had a rough Sun Bowl, which may have sparked why he ultimately transferred, at least played a role. Who knows there, but. When he's on, as Arizona fans know, he's legit, and it's been fun to watch so far.
Yeah, Max, I want to ask you more about Jayden because I'm a big fan in terms of I think he's got tons of potential. I mean, you've already seen a lot of it, but he's only a sophomore. I think he could stand maybe to improve his completion percentage and his decision making a little bit. I think his receivers have made him look even better than he is. What do you think is the ceiling for Jayden de Laura? Like, if he plays 3 more years at Arizona, counting this year, how good could he be?
The ceiling for Jayden de Laura. I mean, in terms of, so I think Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in the conference. I don't know if he'll get there, but I think he could be to the point where the ceiling is he's getting that vote, maybe a couple years on the road, a vote for first team all conference quarterback. I think that is the ceiling. I don't think that's a stretch. Do I think he's going to win it? Yeah, that might be a bit much, or I guess maybe rather than a vote, in consideration for that spot. I think that's the bar I put him in. I mean, we'll see what happens with Washington's quarterback situation in years to come, where USC's at, but I think, Jayden de Laura, especially as he gets more comfortable with Jedd Fisch, just big picture. I mean, they're already obviously comfortable with one another, but another year entrenched in that, another year of maturity. I mean, the Tatero McMillan, he's going nowhere. He's only going to get better and bigger and faster and stronger. So that to me is the ceiling of him, at least in that conversation.
Let me ask you about the offensive line, Arizona's offensive line specifically. It's been a concern of mine, a concern of a lot of fans going into the season. I think they've held up pretty well overall. What are your thoughts on the offensive line and the protection they've offered Jayden de Laura, their ability to block in the run game in the 2 weeks that you've covered the team?
I think they're solid. I think they're getting the job done. I've been really impressed with Jordan Morgan. I mean, it's cool talking with the staff, and you guys know this as well, but when I just ask them a softball question of like, oh, where are things at with the offensive line? They right away go to Morgan, right away, every single time. And I didn't know who he was last year covering the conference, candidly. I didn't spend a lot of time covering Arizona, but then this year it feels like he's really taken that next jump, and it's cool to see. So I think they're doing well. What impresses me the most is when Jed calls those outside run scheme and the wide receiver screen game, and the guys are asked to get out involved with that. That to me is impressive. And that to me is not just a sign of, it's 5 bodies we're just throwing out there. Like, no, they're scheming things, and they're really asking these guys to expand what they're doing. It's not just some, air raid offensive line. It's just, hey, let's get in front of guys. So I've been impressed. I think the tall task will be against, the Utahs of the world, even Arizona State to an extent. Arizona State is a good interior defensive line front. those will be the tests when you heat things up on Jayden, because as we've seen, Jayden's great when things are going well, but when he's getting off his spot and feels like he might need to be Superman, that's where things can go sideways for him when he's when the turnovers come about.
Max, what do you think of Jedd Fisch's play calling? Shane and I talked about this earlier in the show. Last year, I thought it was abysmal, but he didn't have a lot to work with. This year, it seems like it's light years better. You as a former quarterback, how do you view it?
I like it. One of my first questions to Jedd last week was how he views both the tempo aspect of play calling versus the formation aspect of play calling. I think Arizona's done a great job of, the first half versus Cal was a perfect example to me. First half versus Cal, tempo was not a huge factor. Formations were a huge factor. You watch Arizona, they'll go from empty on one play to 12 personnel under center, under center run scheme the very next play. That's hard to do. Jedd's making that look easy. Most offenses do not have the identity where they can go empty formation on first down. All right, you pick up 6, boom, we're right into that, and we're putting pressure on the outside linebacker having to be in the run game against McLaughlin while he's coming at you. Like, that shift is hard to do, coupled with the fact, to my earlier point, if they have to go up tempo, they can do that, and they've shown that. And that's where I think de Laura is the most comfortable up tempo in the gun, all 5 receivers getting out. But I've been impressed with the play calling there. I think I get the sense that Jedd really feels like that whole playbook's open, and he's scheming up a lot for Cowing, which is a whole nother piece to it as well. But you can tell that he loves all 3 receivers and McLaughlin. It doesn't matter who gets the rock.
Yeah, it's really exciting because we're not used to this, Max. Last year it was brutal to watch, and now it's been fun. What we saw with 650 plus total yards against Colorado, it's fantastic. Now, on the other side of the ball, you as a former quarterback, if you were playing against this Arizona defense, your eyes would light up. What's the problem? Is it scheme or talent?
The cop-out answer is a little bit of both. The first answer is it's hard to tell, and it's hard to tell for a couple reasons. Coming off the bus, I like that Arizona defensive line. I played in an era where Arizona's defensive line was tiny. You talk about the mid-2010s, when they were trying to move Scooby Wright around, and he was not a big dude. And I remember you had days where you're like, oh, we can really get after these guys. That's not the case in terms of just roster height with this defensive line. So it makes me feel like the talent is there. That being said, I also don't feel like there's also clips where they are getting pushed around a little bit. And I also look at, the Will linebacker spot or Mike linebacker spot when you're having to play a true freshman there. That's not easy to do. I also look at Christian Roland Wallace. He's good in coverage. That was not his best effort. You turn on that Cal film in the run game, which makes me think, maybe it is a talent thing in terms of Johnny Nansen doesn't have a ton to work with in that capacity. So I think it's a little bit of both. It's going to be the fine line of trying to maximize the talent there for Nansen.
Max, a simple question for you. It's not an easy question, but a simple question. How does Arizona beat Oregon?
Arizona beats Oregon. Let's see here. They have to get – I want a good answer for you here. Let me go they have to minimize the run game on defense. I don't think they're going to stop it on defense, but they have to minimize the run game. This is not a run attack for Oregon. That was like, when CJ Verdell and Herbert were there, when they're going to come downhill right at you and then play action off of that. I don't think it's that level. They've still recruited well. That offensive line is still good, but it's not that good. So you have to at least make that not a Cal type game where they're having a career day for Jayden Knott. And then offensively, Oregon secondary, once again, they've recruited well, but I don't look at that secondary and say, hey, they're as good as last year. And so I think you have to have the quick passing game show up, force those corners to tackle. They're still relatively inexperienced out there. Force the short corners to tackle, get Jayden de Laura confidence, and you have to be good in the first quarter. When you look at de Laura, when he's good in the first quarter, he settles into the game, finds the rhythm of the game, doesn't feel like he has to play outside of himself. When he has a rough first quarter, throws a pick early, I always feel like he's playing uphill, so to speak, and try to make up for it. And that's where the mistakes compound. So first quarter. That's key for Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona's actually upset Oregon a lot over the years. And I think back to a 2013 game where they beat a top 10 Oregon team with Marcus Mariota, and they blew them out. And they had some big plays early in the game in Tucson that I think really changed the momentum and gave the team a lot of confidence. Just from you being on the field, how big is that momentum, that confidence, like getting some big plays early in the game, setting the tone, and really maybe believing, oh, we really can beat these guys? How big a deal is that just versus the raw talent on both sides of the team for each team?
Yeah, I think it's huge for the points you outlined. And I also think it's big because Arizona's offense is good enough where I think they can instill fear in Oregon. I think if they started off hot and you're like, oh, we don't have an answer for this. I mean, they're throwing it to number 2, the number 4, the number 5, and then, oh yeah, we forget about that. The tight end gets involved. So it's huge. But for me, it's almost the psychological component for both sides, the fear that could be instilled for Oregon. And then the confidence for Arizona's perspective of, we could play with these dudes. And Oregon's D-line is really good. Brandon Dorlus is one of the best defensive linemen in the conference. And so that's a tall task for Arizona's offensive line, but for a similar respect. If Arizona has success early, you minimize that pass rush. Pass rush starts to get gassed, maybe not as confident. That's an opportunity to get after those guys.
So, Max, Arizona has a ridiculous schedule coming up. 5 ranked teams in a row. It goes Oregon at Washington, USC at home at Utah at UCLA. Which is Arizona's best chance to win, and which is Arizona's least chance to win, in your opinion?
Yeah, we saw that in the last segment on air last week, and I was like, man, and at that point, UCLA wasn't ranked. So we're like, 4 in a row. No, it's going to be 5. Luckily, there's a bye week smushed in between there. But Arizona's best chance to win is Washington on the road in Seattle.
Really?
Washington's, yeah. And I got heat from that from the UW fans. But Washington's secondary is the weakness of their team. They are thin at corner. They're injury prone at corner. They had a safety convert to corner. They have another safety banged up. And so just sheer matchup wise, that's a tall task for Washington secondary going up against Arizona's passing attack. And I know on the road, Husky Stadium, I get that. That's a big factor. Don't get me wrong. But I think matchup wise, I mean, you always talk about it like in basketball terms of like, oh, do they match up well, like a run and gun team versus a more slow it down type team. And I think Arizona could sneak up on Washington there. The hardest task, I think, is Utah, because I think Utah is going to have no problem getting pressure with 4, if not 3. And that defensive playbook for Utah, it's 2 weeks in a row. They've had pick sixes, and it's a byproduct of some exotic defensive calls. So I think that's an experienced group that could be a problem for Arizona.
Last question for you, Max. And like Eric said, we really do appreciate your time. Let's start with the obvious. Arizona football is not USC football. They're not a perennial top 25 team. Had some good teams over the years, but it's been very sporadic. Jedd Fisch put together a top 25 recruiting class in his second year, coming off a 1-win season. If he's able, and he and the staff are able to keep bringing in talent at that level, including transfers like Jacob Cowling, and keep the coaching staff mostly in place, which I know is always tricky, how good could this Arizona team be in 2 or 3 years?
It's always funny because especially in the scope of like Carl Durrell's firing, and I covered the Huskies a bunch this year. Like there's like 6 teams in the conference that they expect to be contending for a conference championship every year. Yep. I don't know if Arizona is thinking that every single year, but every 5th year or so, get in there, mix things up and whatnot. But I think they could be to the point where they're in November vying for a spot in Vegas. I think to expect to be there, that might be a little much. But to be in contention, and you call it 2 years, Jayden de Laura's senior year with McMillan and the guys, have success in the portal, maybe bring some other Arizona guys back home and have that be a cool spot. I don't think there's any reason they can't expect to at least be in contention in November here.
And that's what we saw in 2014, where Arizona was in contention and they played ASU and both teams were right around the top 10. And Arizona ended up going to the Fiesta Bowl. They got smoked by Oregon in the Pac-12 championship game. But, hey, we got our once-a-decade chance of, going somewhere. All right, last question for you. This is not Arizona related. I look at the Pac-12. I see that Washington, in my opinion, has the easiest schedule left. But obviously that loss to UCLA hurts. Utah plays USC next week. Oregon does not have to play USC during the regular season. Who are the two teams that meet in Vegas in early December? Because I was having a real hard time figuring that out the other day.
Yeah, the scheduling dynamic is tough. It really comes. It's going to be a byproduct of the schedule. Like I think that could be very much the X factor. I think the two best teams are USC and Utah. Whether that shakes out in terms of scheduling, we shall see. I'm going those two teams meet. I think the UW loss on the road. UW to me is the third team. The UW loss on the road to UCLA, I think was telling, and maybe they stub their toe again at some point that ultimately has them on the outside looking in.
Yeah, they play at Oregon. That's their only game that I see from here on out where that I would not favor them in. So I was just trying to figure it out the other day. I'm like, man, this conference is a mess. And now without the division format where the North has to play the South, it's going to be fun. But Max, thank you so much for joining Shane and I. Great analysis. Great job on both Arizona games the last few weeks. And I have a feeling we'll be hearing you calling another Arizona game or two later in the year.
I hope so. Seriously, this was a blast. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks to Max Browne for joining Shane and I. That was a great interview, great insight from him. The one thing I disagree with him on, though, Washington is not Arizona's best chance to
Wasn't
win.
that interesting, though?
Yeah, I was shocked by that. I was really shocked. I didn't see that coming.
But it's interesting. Hey, it gives us hope. We're talking about maybe USC, maybe UCLA. A win at Washington would be a heck of a statement.
I'm going to say USC. To my answer earlier, I think USC is Arizona's best chance to win outside of Oregon. Give me the games at home as compared to ones on the road. Just my take on that. Okay. The Red Blue game happened last weekend. I didn't watch much of it. I don't put a lot of stock in college basketball in September. It was not the best performance, whatnot. We won't really get into it now. We'll talk more basketball as we go along. But over the last week, since we last did our podcast, the new basketball uniforms were announced, and I came out on Twitter and I said that I liked the blue and the white ones. I do not like the red ones for what it's worth. But my co-host Shane Dale is not a fan. So Shane, you have the floor. Do tell.
Every so often, Eric, there's something that almost everyone loves that I don't get.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm not Lord of the Rings. Everyone loves Lord of the Rings. I've never been a fan. Jack Black. I don't think he's funny. Most people love. These uniforms fall in that category, Eric. I don't get it. I don't care for them. I know what they were going for. I know. And by the way, I did a Twitter poll, like, how do you feel about the Arizona uniforms? And almost 90% said love it or like it versus dislike it. Right? So I'm in a big time minority on this, and I'm glad most fans like it. Okay. I know Arizona had these kinds of uniforms before Gonzaga did. Okay. I get it. But the look, especially the blue uniforms, is more closely affiliated with Gonzaga's current brand than it is Arizona's. When the average college basketball fan looks at them, they're going to think Gonzaga. Okay. You don't have to like it. Okay. You can yell at the top of your lungs. We had them first. But that doesn't change that fact. So there's that. I think I see what they're going for. I think they look too much like the Zags. So that's my thing. You can, send me more Twitter hate. I don't really care. That's my opinion. But let me touch on the red uniforms and then to me, it looks like with the red uniforms, whoever was assigned to design those new uniforms forgot about the red uniforms until the day they were due.
Yes.
And just copied the women's uniforms.
Correct. 100%.
And presented them as new and innovative. That's what I think about the red.
I agree. 100%.
I have no problem with the women's uniforms, but they're the women's uniforms. Let's make no mistake about that.
And I love red uniforms. I love Arizona wearing the red. I love the uniforms. Like when we were in school, Shane, in the early 2000s, those were great. Why don't you bring those back? I was talking to somebody about this just in general. When like old uniforms in the NFL or college, like Michigan never changes their uniforms. Ohio State, with the exception of a one-off, their uniforms are the same. Like, why do we need to get cute with everything? Yeah, you had something that worked that the fans loved.
I just wanted the gradient gone. Well, it's gone now. I guess I got what I asked for.
But why do you have to change it? I know you want to sell more merchandise. But there's no way I would ever buy one of those red ones. No. You're right. They look like the women's uniforms.
They are the women's uniforms. Yeah.
There's no creativity there. The blue and white ones I kind of like, honestly. I know I see your Gonzaga comparison and all that. I was really disappointed in the reds because that was the color I was most looking forward to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on that. Look, I'm glad most fans like them. I wish if I was, if they were going to go back to the 88 uniforms, I wish they would have just copied the 88 and just left it at that instead of trying to do something new, because I feel like they're just trying to make Tommy Lloyd feel more at home, making them look like the Gonzaga uniforms.
Well,
That's all.
I hope they play as well as Gonzaga and get as far as Gonzaga.
And I was going to say, Eric, the last thing I'll say is if they win the national championship, those uniforms are going to look great. Everyone's going to love them, including me. So the uniforms are not the biggest thing. The biggest thing is they finally get their butts back to a Final Four and win a championship. But I think they could have done better on all accounts, especially the red, like you said.
Nah, Shane, I'm not going to like those red uniforms. I don't care if they win the national title in them. I still don't like them.
Fine.
It's disappointed in those. All right, on to game picks, college football game picks. We were both 7-5 last week. I am 31-24. You are 26-29. We both have 2 ties. I am 2-3 against the spread and straight up in Arizona games. You are 2-3 straight up and 1-4 against the spread in Arizona games. So time to change things. This week we have I think a 10-pack of games. Let's get right to it. Tennessee is a 3-point favorite at LSU. Shane, who you got?
I'm going LSU. It's tough to win on the road. I think Tennessee was exposed a little bit in the game against Florida. So I think LSU. I don't know if they cover or they win outright, but I think they'll cover. I think it'll be very close.
Well, a 3-point spread, generally, if a team doesn't cover the 3, they generally means they lost the game.
So true.
I like Tennessee. This line is a little fishy, but I'm sorry, I'm not backing Jayden Daniels. I know that LSU has won 4 in a row since that Florida State debacle, but I really don't think they're that good, honestly. So I'm going Tennessee there. All right, TCU is a touchdown favorite at Kansas, 7. I like TCU here to win. I know Kansas is 5-0. They have College Game Day there, which is fantastic. Problem is that Kansas has played basically nobody. Houston, we thought was good. They stink. West Virginia is not very good. Duke, are we really getting excited about? Not really. TCU is legit. I was very impressed with what Sonny Dykes' team did to Oklahoma last week. We were both way off on that one. Yep. I think TCU wins this by 10+.
I agree with you. I think Kansas, they deserve to be ranked. They're getting game day. That's great. But yeah, they haven't played anyone yet. They've done everything they can. TCU is by far the best team they'll have seen to this point. So I'll take TCU to cover.
Texas is also giving a touchdown, 7 points, touchdown and extra point versus Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry played at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. I'll start with this one, Shane. With Oklahoma's Dylan Gabriel out, the Sooners are on a 2-game losing streak, and they looked horrible last week. I don't think Texas is that good, but I'm going to roll with them. As I picked them in my Sportsline column tentatively. Check that out, sportsline.com. There's my plug.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm going with Texas laying the 7 against Oklahoma. Do you agree?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think Texas, if it was straight up, I'd probably go Texas, but 7 points I think is a lot. I know Oklahoma struggled mightily, but number one, it's a rivalry game. So there's always that element, but I got to go with Oklahoma. I don't think Texas is going to cover.
Okay. Utah, another one of my favorite Sportsline plays, is going to UCLA. UCLA is undefeated after that win against Washington, which we were both wrong on. I was stunned by that one last Friday night. Utah is giving 4.5 points at UCLA. Who you got?
Utah. I'm being stubborn, Eric. I still don't believe in UCLA. I think Utah's the best team in the conference. I think they cover.
I'm with you there, Shane. I think Utah is right up there with USC as the best team in the conference. So I'm going Utah to cover as well. A game I did not pick in my Sportsline column, and now that's the end of me mentioning it. Washington State is at USC. The Trojans are -13. What do you think here, Shane? They kind of struggled to cover or to even win by that much against ASU and did not cover the 24-26 number, whatever it was. Who you got?
Yeah, USC is probably the second best team in the conference, but I think they're still figuring things out. This feels like a 7 to 10 point win for USC, or maybe even a situation where USC's up 17 and Washington State scores a meaningless to most of us touchdown late. So I'm going to take Washington State to cover.
I like Washington State to make this game really interesting. I think this game is going to scare USC fans. So I'm taking the Cougs plus the points. Quick one, non-Pac-12 game. We got a couple of non-Pac-12 games here. BYU is facing Notre Dame in Las Vegas. Notre Dame is -3.5. What you got?
A little surprised by that line. I think I'm not a big BYU believer. Easy for me to say, but I think BYU wins.
I do too. I think BYU wins the game outright. I don't need the points. I'll take them straight up.
Yep.
Alabama's given 24 to Texas A&M, who's been a disaster. They just lost about as badly to Mississippi State as Arizona did. Alabama, don't know if Bryce Young's going to play. Who you got?
Yeah, especially with that. And I think Texas A&M having a chip on its shoulder, I think they find a way to cover the 20. Is it 24 and a half? You said?
24. I'm giving 24. Just
24.
Yeah.
I think Texas A&M will find a way to cover.
I do too. I think A&M, especially with the Jimbo Fisher, Nick Saban talk, A&M beat him last year. I know Saban owes it to him and might want to put it on him, but I think he's more worried about the health of his team at this point. So I'll say A&M covers slightly. Okay. Final 3-pack of Pac-12 games. Oregon State is -7 at Stanford, Shane. I think Stanford wins this game outright. Just a gut feeling.
Really?
I'm picking Stanford to win this game outright.
Wow.
So I don't need the 7 points. I really like the Cardinal, and this is not in my plays that I wrote up, but the more this week has gone along, I really like the Cardinal here.
Not impressed with Stanford at all. And I think Oregon State, I know they got their clock cleaned by Utah, but I still think they're a pretty good team. I think they win and they cover. I think we disagree big time on that one.
Okay, Washington has not beaten ASU in Tempe since 2001, but they're giving the Sun Devils 13 on the road this week. Do they bounce back and cover in Sun Devil country?
ASU looked pretty sharp, at least on offense against USC. That was Emory Jones' best game of the year. I think they'll find a way to cover at home. I think that they're energized. Sean Aguano, I mean, he's not going to be their long-term coach, but I think he's got them kind of the team. I think is sort of rallied around him. I don't know if ASU is going to do enough to win, but I think they'll cover.
I actually like Washington here. I think the Huskies win this game by 3 touchdowns. I think they're just that good, and I don't trust ASU's defense to slow them down. I know that the stat about them not winning since 2001 in Tempe concerns me, but I'll throw it out the window. I'm going with Washington. All right, we're going to switch this up. Normally, I'm the one that makes the last pick, but I'm going to make the first pick on Arizona, Oregon, and then let Shane have the final word on it. So Oregon is a 13-point favorite at Arizona. I thought about this over and over and over and don't really have a strong feeling about this one either way. I will say this. I think Arizona has this as a 1-score game late in the third quarter. And then I think Oregon does their thing in the fourth quarter. I'm going to say Oregon 42, Arizona 27. The line is 13. The over-under is 70. I mean, personally, I wouldn't play either, but I think Oregon covers here. I'm taking them. All right, Shane, your turn. Who you got?
The line started at 11.5, and now it's 13, you said?
Yeah, I mean, it's been 13 and a half this week, somewhere in that range. Yeah.
I think in order for Arizona to win this game, I think Bo Nix is going to have a bad game. Like he's going to have to make some dumb mistakes, which I know he's capable of doing.
I'm not a big Bo Nix fan, by the way.
I'm not either, but I think this is a bad matchup. I think his running, he got an 80-yard touchdown run against Stanford. That concerns me going up against Arizona's rush defense. Yeah. So I think unless he throws an interception in double coverage or gets strip sacked early in the game, something big like that, I think it's going to have to happen in order for Arizona to win outright. So no, I don't think that's going to happen. As far as Oregon covering, yeah, I think the line is still about right. I think you and I are in agreement, which is never or rarely a good thing. But I think Oregon wins somewhere in the 45 to 31 range. So I'll say they will just cover.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm excited to watch it. I don't have a gut feel on it. I just don't know what to expect from Arizona. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if they won this game. It wouldn't shock me.
No, it shouldn't shock any of us. You think about 07 and 13 and 14 and 17 and a couple other near upsets. Arizona's done this to Oregon plenty of times over the years for whatever reason. Now those games don't necessarily pertain to Saturday, but there seems to be something to that, and fans show up for this game too. There's a good chance it'll be sold out or close to it. There's going to be a buzz in the stadium that'll only help Arizona. So.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that. That they're, I guess, as of Wednesday afternoon, they're only 3,000 tickets away from a sellout, which is really exciting. I'm looking forward to it. We haven't had an atmosphere like that in Arizona Stadium in a long time. It should be a lot of fun on Saturday night. Let's hope we can shock the world and pull the upset over number 12 Oregon. So, want to thank our new friend. Max Browne from Pac-12 Network for joining Shane and I. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks for listening, and as always, bear down.